So good. Welcome back, guys. I think I know we have done a lot of things, a lot of progress we have made in terms of learning the HTML and CSS, going deep dive into CSS and other concepts. Again, today we'll have a bit of longer session. Okay. In between, again, we'll take a break for a 5-10 minutes after at 8, and then we'll regroup again. Okay, so that we can have a 2 hours of session, and in the middle we'll have 5 minutes break for you guys. Okay, make sense? All right. So let me go ahead and check our code examples. All right. So now in the CSS examples, right, we have looked into a lot of things. In the latest, what we saw was a CSS attribute selectors, right? That is what we saw in our prior sessions. If I open up the Visual Studio Code, and because the title, which we can put that into a square bracket, and that demonstrate the attribute selector. All right. And with that attribute selector, let me try to just increase the font a little bit for you. All right. All right, good. So now, today we'll see what about the web icons. Okay, so web icons are nothing but in the website, right? You see these kind of icons, like in the skillsam.com, you have this trophy kind of an icon, right? And also a clock. There is a briefcase. These are all called as icons. Okay, and they can be put into your website for different things, like this one, a book, some editable kind of a user globe. So these are all what we see them and call them as a icons. Okay, and now how are we going to do that web icons? We'll see one by one. Okay, so there are different ways that web icons can be added to a website. Okay, before that we need to understand something called as CDN, or the content distribution network. So what they do is, because there are certain set of service providers or the content distribution network providers, where we have Cloudflare. Okay, Cloudflare is one very famous, where we have this CDNJS. Okay, you might have already seen this, right? CDNJS .com. This particular website, or a CDN, will host around 4,386 odd libraries that are currently hosted by them, and it is being maintained by Cloudflare. Cloudflare is again one of the organization that is where you can host your website and everything. Just a second. And this CDN, or content delivery network, is kind of a proxy server that is available for you, so that it reduces load on the actual server. So consider this: an user is there, and the user is somewhere existing on the internet, and there is a server of of a website. Suppose google.com. So google.com is has a server in, suppose its main server resides in US. And then, in order to access, the user is located in India. In order to access the same server, even the user from India has to hit the same server, user from America has to hit the same server, and Europe and Africa has to hit the same server, which is residing in US. So the load on that server becomes immensely high. So what they have done, there is a concept called content distribution network. What it means is, there are also, based on the geographies which the user resides. Suppose in India, okay, we are having a lot of users in India who accesses Google. So what Google does is, it will create a replica of the same server in India, and they act as a server for whoever the users they are accessing the google.com. Okay, in the same way, for different geographies, there might be a different distribution networks that are available, so that the access to that particular website becomes faster and easier. Okay, mainly in order to increase its fastness to access and reduce the load on the main server. Okay, in the same way, there are in order to have the content, in order to display the web icons, right, we try to utilize some of the content delivery networks that are available. So one very famous is obviously CDNJS, which is of Cloudflare. And then there is Bootstrap CDN. Bootstrap is again a CSS framework that is very famous and very widely used, and they also host a content delivery network, and they host for a certain, again, if you observe, it is a .css file. Here also there is a .css file. Okay, both host the same. And now if you observe, and there is also web icons can be created using the Google fonts as well. That is fonts.googleapis.com. Okay. Now let me try to take this as an example to show you one by one. So now let me let me comment these out for you first. Now if you observe this, there are three content distribution networks that have been added to this website. Oh, someone is accessing. Okay. So what are those? The first is Cloudflare. Okay, they have the Font Awesome content delivery network. It is basically related for Font Awesome. And then there is having a Bootstrap content delivery network, which also hosts a Bootstrap minimum.css file. And here there is also a Google font external link, which is hosted at this site. Okay, website. So to give you a perspective, let's go to this Font Awesome. Let's say if I go to Font Awesome. So Font Awesome is what? It is internet's icon library and toolkit used by millions of designers and developers and the content creators. So what it contains lot of icons that are available. Okay. Now, for example, if I go ahead and see the icons, a total of 26,000 icons are there, which you can go ahead and use um, uh, on your web page. All right, and some of them are free, some of them are paid. And what we are going to use is, currently we are going to go ahead. If you see the plans, right, you'll come to know that. So there are free, there is a Pro and Pro Max versions that are currently available. But for us, what we are going to use is, we are going to use these 2020, which is free and open source icons. This is what we are going to use currently. But there are also an option to use the more premium versions also are available. But for us, the area of interest would be these 20,020, that is 2020 icons. Like for example, let's say this home icon. So if you see this home icon, right, the code that we are going to use is this: I class is what? Font solid and font house. Okay, so this is nothing but the icon image that is going to show up on your web page, which is home icon. In order to show that home icon, you need to add this tag with this class. And where is this class defined? This class is defined in the library that you are going to add here. It is a library called all.min.css. Here the dot fa solid dot fa house, these two classes are being used in order to define this particular icon. Okay, this is a HTML code. Again, there is a React code, there is a Vue.js code, and there is a SVG code. Okay, so for us, the area of interest would be the HTML code. Okay, in the same way as we see whole house as one icon, there are a lot of icons. Like for a social media, there is a Twitter icon. Okay, you can go ahead and use this web icon using this class. And there is a Discord icon, there is a up arrow. So all that, whatever you think of, at least 20,000, 20 of them are available freely for the use on your website. Okay, this is about Font Awesome. So remember this site, make a note of this for your usage whenever you work on a program or anything on creating your website. Use this particular website. All right. So one is, in order to use this particular min file, the what is this, the .css min file is there, right? This particular file is being hosted on content distribution network. Okay, they have added this to this particular link, so just including that link will be enough for your HTML file to consider that this particular font awesome content distribution network is added. If you go to this link, right, what you get is this CSS file. What is this? If I zoom it a little bit to show you, Font Awesome free 6.2.0 version. This is a Font Awesome library that has been created, CSS library. And if you see the license, it is a MIT license. It is free to use. Okay, whenever there is a license is MIT license, which means it is of free to use for any purpose. Like for example, CC and BY 404. CC is Creative Commons. If you go ahead and read about the MIT license, I encourage you, this is a takeaway for today's session. Go ahead and read this MIT license. What is this? Okay, so that you will be clear about, there are certain software licenses that you need to, there are, like say a MIT license, there is a BSD free license, there is a Creative Commons license like CC, BY, SA, NC. So all these kind of things you need to understand. All right. So if you see these all, this is all nothing but your CSS file. If I go ahead and find uh, fa hyphen solid, and that is defined here inside this. This is a dot fa solid. This is the same class that is being used in your this particular thing icon. So if you observe this, fa solid, right? This is the class name, and this class name is defined in this library that I just now showed you, fa dot solid. All right. So just remember that in order to use the Font Awesome icons in your web page, the first thing what you need to do is include this file, which is cdncloudflare.com. This is the where the file is hosted. You can just include that, and then you can go ahead and utilize those Font Awesome icons, like that is 2020, which is 2020 icons. You can go ahead and use them in your website. That is one way. The another way is this one, Bootstrap. Bootstrap also has got Bootstrap icons. If you see Bootstrap icons, there is a this is the website, icons.getbootstrap.com. If you go to this, right, they also have lot of icons that are available. Okay, and they are free and of high quality open source icons. There are around 1800 icons that are currently being hosted by Bootstrap. Okay, in order to include this Bootstrap icons, what you need is again some linkage to that library, which is being hosted at this CDN, which is Content Distribution Delivery Network, which is max CDN bootstrap cdn.com. And then there is a bootstrap min.css file that is need to be included in your link file if you are trying to use these icons. Okay, if you are trying to use these icons, then you need to have that included. Okay, and then the another way to include is Google Fonts. Okay, again Google Font, again Google Fonts, also fonts.google.com. If you go to icons, let me go, if you go to icons, there is these icons can also be included. There are a lot of them that are Google has provided free of cost, around 2500 glyphicons. Usually they call it as glyphicons. Okay, Google has them named as glyphicons. They are still the web icons in itself. The material symbols, like if I zoom it a little bit, right, so material symbols are our newest icons consolidating over 2500 graphics. Okay, So there are 2500 glyphicons are available, so you can go ahead and utilize these also in your web pages. If and how is that you're going to use them? By including this particular library. Okay, so font, APIs, icon family, material plus icons. This is what you need to specify. All right, so just include that, then go ahead and use them. Now let's go ahead and see one by one how to use them. Okay, so the very first is, if I go ahead and see this. Okay, if I go ahead and see this, right guys, what is happening here? Demo font awesome icons. All right, why is this coming up here? Because of this, there is a h1 tag that has been added, which is nothing but demo web icons, which is available here. Okay, and then there is a h2 hr is added, which is a horizontal rule. That is the reason you are seeing a horizontal rule here. And then there is a h2 heading, which is demo font awesome icons. This is the one. Then you are going to add the I tag. Okay, the I tag would be added here, and there is a opening tag of I, and then there is a closing tag. Nothing is added in between. Just include the I tag. That's it. Okay, and if you add something, then it will be a different game. Okay, if you add, there is an icon followed by something will be displayed. That is a enclosed tag content, right? So I'm not adding anything, just to display you this. Or if I can say this is a Facebook, then I can say Facebook home. So now this is how it looks, Facebook home. Okay, because that I have added after this. Now let me remove this and show you. So what it contains is, I have added five of them, five icons. And what are those five icons, guys? FA, FA address hyphen book. So how is this referenced? This is referenced using this icon, this particular CDN that is added. If you don't add this CDN, right, then this class that you have defined is of no use. Like if I just want to show you, if I comment this out, suppose this I have commented. Now if I go ahead and see the output, nothing is shown here, because the web page does not understand what these classes are. If they understand, then you can go ahead and include them. How to make the HTML page to understand these classes? Then you need to enable this particular CDN. Okay, that is where the classes are defined in that CSS file. If you see, all min.css file is there, right? This is the file. In this file, everything is defined in relation to the icons. So are you guys able to understand how to include font awesome icons?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now at the same time, what I'm going to do is font awesome social media icons. Okay, now what you see here is a font awesome social media icons. So what is the names for them? FAB is one class, and then FA Twitter, then FA hyphen LinkedIn, then there is YouTube, Instagram, Facebook hyphen F. So all these are different icons that you're going to see in relation to the social media, but they are font awesome provided icons. Okay, and then if you go ahead and see the next one, which is font awesome icons, and they are related to what? They are related to uh, let's say here, what is this? They are related to font awesome. Yeah, this is for a laptop, right? So now what is this I'm trying to show you guys here? Font awesome icon styling. This is a laptop. Okay, a laptop icon. And what is the catch here is, we can even style the icons. Now currently you are seeing they are all appearing in black and white. Okay, but this is the same icon is being styled here. How can we style the icon? Like this, there is a ID that has been added. Like suppose I don't give this ID name, let's say I've just defined I tag, and this is how your laptop icon will look like. Okay, if you see, observe here, this is the laptop icon. Now, what we are going to give, we are going to define a ID or identifier attribute and give them as LTOP, which is representing laptop. And the same ID, I am going to use it in the style tag. And here is that I have taken a ID selector. Inside the ID selector, I have defined or given certain CSS declarations. Okay. And what is that? Background color should be indigo. The color of the text should be white, and font size has been increased to 10 em. Okay. And then padding, then there is margin, and then there is a border which is dashed. And that is the reason you are seeing this border being dashed, indigo color, white color, and this size has been increased because of the padding and padding as well as margin given. And also font size has been 10 em. Okay. Now if that is the reason it has increased in the size, what it means is even the icons can be styled. All right. And now moving on to that, what we have is how to utilize the Google material icons. Okay. There are also, like we saw, the web icons can be created using Font Awesome. They can be created using Bootstrap Glyphicons. We can also create through the Google material icons. Now let's understand how to use Google material icons. Now, even for this, you need a I tag, open I tag and close I tag, and then you specify the icon that you want to include. Here, there is a class name. What is important here is the name that you need to give within the enclosed tag. This is important here. In Font Awesome, there was nothing that you used to give in the enclosed tag. Enclosed tag is blank. Only you are giving the class name. Here, you need to give the class name which is constant, which is always same for every icon, which is material icons. But what is important is this content. Depending on this, what name you give here, that particular icon will be picked. Like material icon home means it will show you the home image. Okay. Then material icon favorite. Favorite is nothing but it will be a heart. And then material icon grade. Grading is like rating, which is nothing but your star ratings. Okay. And then there is a key. That is the reason you're going to see the key web icon. And then there is setting, which is this wheel, setting wheel. Okay. This is the creation of web icons using Google material icons. For this also you need to include this particular file, which is fonts.googleapis.com, and then you specify this argument to it. Okay. Whatever that icons family is equal to material plus icon. Okay. And then demo bootstrap glyphicons. Okay. Like we said, even bootstrap also has got this particular CDN, right? Even this you can go ahead and utilize them in order to represent your web icons. For this, what you need to use, the class is glyphicon, and then specify the glyphicon type that you want to give. It is a I open is nothing but this particular one. Okay. You can see a I open glyphicon. And then there is a glyphicon remove. Remove is X. Okay. And then the glyphicon user, which is a celebrity of the user. Okay. And then there is an envelope. Then you have this envelope given here. Then there is a thumbs up sign, and that is because of this one. Okay. So what you can do is you can play around with a lot of these font awesome or Google fonts or glyphicons provided by Bootstrap. All these can be utilized in your web pages. Okay. Any questions, guys, in terms of web icons?
No, sir.
Okay, good. So make a note of these websites, guys. Anyways, I'm going to load these whatever the session videos as well for you. Later you can go refer them. But for the practice immediately, kindly note down these particular web links as well for your reference. Okay. And maybe make them as a bookmark in your web browser so that you can use them. All right. So just to recapitulate, what are these website or web icons? It is a picture or a symbol that you can put on your website, basically. Okay. It acts like a button or a link or anything of sort of decorative in nature. All that can be done using um, uh, these website icons. All right. Now, moving on to the next one today, we are going to talk about layout display. Okay. So, what is this layout display? Now, in layout, so there are a certain properties in CSS. One is definitely display property. Okay. How do you want to display a particular element? And display in the sense whether it is a display is block or inline block or none or hidden. Okay, visibility is hidden. All these things we are going to understand one by one now. So now let me take this example. I'm going to see this. The path is right. Yeah, path is right. Okay, good. So now what has been done here, guys? Let's take it one by one. Okay. So there is a web page created, a simple boilerplate, and comments are there. That's fine. Now, what is important is here we have added a heading, and then there is a heading two, and then there is a heading two again added, and then there is a span tag which opens and closes here, and a div tag which opens and closes. Inside that, there are 10 image elements. Okay, so each image element has got a class called img1 2 all the way to 9, and the path of that image, which is nothing but the source, is equal to whatever the url you need to specify. And then there is an alternate text which is all about football. There is a width is given 10%, so that the 10% of the width of the viewport it will occupy. And then there is a title is whenever we hover the mouse over the image, then the title is going to show up. Okay, that is what the use of title here. Now, so just to go ahead and show you, let's say if I want to delete this, no styling. Okay, let's show you the output. Yeah, this is how the output looks now. So what is it? First is your heading one, which is nothing but this one, demo layout display. You're seeing that heading one. And then there is heading two, okay, which is this one. And then there is heading two again, which has got the class as a head one and head two. There are two classes created. These are the two heading h2. And then there is a span which is created here. This is the span. Okay, now if I hover the mouse over it, it is going to show me what image is it. If you see, the title is being showed image 1, image 2, image 3, all the way to image 9, which is coming from where? Which is coming from the title attribute. All right. Now, this is what the HTML structure would look like. Now, let's go ahead and see some of the display properties. Okay, display is again one of the CSS property we are going to use here. Let's go ahead and see. For that, let's add a HTML. Let's add this style tag. And inside that, the moment I say display is equal to inline, okay, so what it means, whenever we say display, there are three properties to it. Display is inline, display is block, display is none, and another is visibility is hidden. All right, so what is display inline? The element does not start on a new line and only takes up as much width as necessary. What it means is, now before this we just need to recapitulate two things here. What are those? The HTML elements, if I go back and show you, where is that? I'm just recapitulating a basic thing, guys. What is that? Block and inline. So in HTML, right, every element is either a block element or an inline element. A block element is what forms a visible block of the page and always appears in the new line. Okay, that is a block element. And inline element contained within the block elements, and element will not cause a new line to appear. Okay, like for example, inline element span is an inline element, whereas image is an inline element. So that is the reason we have taken image as an example here to show. If let me go ahead. So you understood the difference between a block element and inline element, right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now with that background, what I'm going to show you is, now, before the CSS styling, every element or the image was appearing in the same straight line, correct? And H2 is a block element, H1 is a block element, whereas span is an inline element, div is a block element, image is an inline element, okay? So div is a block and all these images are inline elements. Span is an inline element. H2 is an inline element, whereas H1 is an inline element. That is the reason H1, H2, H3 were all appearing in the separate lines. They are not appearing on the same line. Now, what we are going to show you here is we are taking a dot head one, which is nothing but this particular selection. So this is a class selector. Dot h1 is a class selector. We are making these two as what? Display is equal to inline. So let me remove this. So only two. Consider this. Heading 1 and heading 2 both are inline now. Now let's go ahead and see the output. So what is happening, guys? Display, this was a heading 1 and this was a heading 2. Prior to this, display is equal to inline. They were both appearing in a separate lines, right, one below the other. But now, because we are saying that we are actually modifying the inherent nature of the HTML element itself. We are making H2 to appear as an inline element now. Why? Because of display is equal to inline, because of this property. Display is equal to inline for heading 1 and display is equal to inline for heading 2. Both of them, head 1 and head 2, both are H2, but they have given a separate class names. That is the reason they are appearing in the same line now, which is this one, display of this and this. All right. Now, anyways, span is an inline element. That is the reason it is just appearing next to it. If I zoom out, it is just appearing next to it. Okay, which is acceptable because span is an inline element. And next, what we are going to do, next what I'm going to do is, let's say, let's consider image 1. Image 1, what we are saying, image as the element itself, this one, image 1, this is a inline element. So now what I'm going to make it, I'm making it as a block element. So what is that? I'm changing the property of the image from inline to block, which means it will appear as a new line. That is because of this. If you see, the image 1 is separately appearing in a single line, whereas rest of the images are appearing in the same line. Okay, this is because display is equal to block is set for this particular image, which is image 1. Understood, guys, this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to pick the image 4 now. So what is being set? Image 4, we are going to make the display is equal to none. What it means is you are not going to display the element itself, but what will happen, one catch here is the space that is occupied by that image, it will still be there. Okay, now um, let's go ahead and yeah, now we are going to see this image 1, image 2, image 3, and if you see image 5, where is the image 4? Image 4 is display is equal to none. We are not going to see that image at all. So this is a very important property which is all obviously a lot of times in practically it is used. Like for example, you have created a website and that website is responsive. What it means is you can see that website in the mobile as well as laptop as well as desktop or a tablet. Okay, but there are certain sections of the website that you do not want to show to the user when they access through the mobile device. At that time you can go ahead and use display is equal to none whenever the screen size is set to below, whenever the screen size goes below 400 pixels. Okay, that is one way to use it very practically. That has been done, I have used it multiple times. Whenever this screen image shrinks and it becomes a mobile, and that time I want to not display certain sections of the web page, at that time I can go ahead and use this display is equal to none. Okay, ultimately what it's going to do, display is equal to none will hide the image. Next next is, here there is a difference here. Now there is also another property called visibility. Okay, visibility is equal to hidden and display is equal to none. There is a difference here. Both will allow the image not to display. Okay, both have got one common property, which is that particular image 4 and 6 will not be displayed in both the cases. That is the similarity between these two properties. And what is the difference? Difference is the visibility is equal to hidden will leave the place intact, which means whatever the space that has been occupied by image 6 will just be shown as a blank there. Okay, but the space will be there. Now let's understand that. Okay, yeah, now see, this is a image 1, image 2, image 3 is there, image 5 is here. By because image 4 we have given display is equal to none. Image 4 display is equal to none. That is the reason that that particular image is not displayed. Instead of that, the image 5 has taken its place, whereas for image 6 the visibility is hidden. So which means you are hiding this image. If you see here, there is after 5 the 6 should appear. 6 is not there because visibility is hidden. Then there is 7, then there is 8, then there is 9. Understood, guys, the difference between display is equal to none and visibility is hidden?
Yes, sir.
Super. Finally, we are going to say at the image 9 display is equal to block, which will appear in the new line. That is what it is going to do. Okay, it is appearing instead of here, it will appear in the new line because the block always starts in the new line. All right, understood, guys, what the display property and the visibility?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Now let's go ahead and try to understand the position also. This is also very often used property in css, the position. Okay, and a lot of things learning in this part now. So what is that we are going to learn here? Let's go ahead and explore it one by one. So let me remove the styling here just to show you. Now let's understand this one very simple definition of what it is. So what is the position? Position is like it is basically specifies the positioning method used in the element. So positioning method is, there are certain positioning methods that we have in CSS. They are like static, relative, fixed, absolute, and sticky. Okay, all these are position methods. There are five positions that can take this value. Position is a property, and the values can be static, relative, fixed, absolute, and sticky. These are the five. All right. And all the positioning properties, all the CSS positioning properties, whether how do you want to position them. Okay. Again, it is a top, left, bottom, right, and all that need to be defined. Now let's go ahead and understand the first thing first, which is the position. So whenever you say it's sticky, the HTML elements are positioned static at default. So what is the static? The inherent or the built-in property of any HTML element is static by default. And relative is position relative to its normal position. So if the position is appearing at the leftmost side, then relative to that position, you are going to change the position of that element. Now with the example you'll able to understand, but now fixed is position relative to the viewport is this particular window, right? Viewport, that is the relative to that viewport, you are going to make it as fixed. Whereas absolute is relative to the nearest position of the ancestor. Ancestor is, you can only use absolute when there is a element within that, a element within an element, only then you can use absolute. We'll see what that means. And then there is sticky. Sticky as itself suggests, it is like a adhesive. Okay, it will be at a particular position only. Okay, so the position is based on user scroll position. So when you scroll, how is that going to behave? Let's take that one by one. Now, what does this structure contains? Now let's see this structure. This is how the structure is positioned. What it contains. Now there is a heading one. First is a demo static. Okay, I am demonstrating the static. That is a heading three. Then there is a div that has added. There are three images that have been added here. And then there is a demo position relative. Then we have added three more images, and fixed position, again relative, abs or sticky. Okay, all these have been added now. So by default, without any styling, this is how it looks. Okay, the demo position, then there are three balls that have been added, and then there is a relative position, three balls, then the relative absolute, then there is, and then sticky position, and then there is a paragraph that is added at the bottom. Okay, now first and foremost, what we are going to show is the demo position static. So for that, what we are going to do is, first let's going to add the static selector, that is dot static. It is coming from where, guys? It is coming from this class called static. The div has a class called static, and then there is image 1, 2, and 3 under that. Okay, three images are added with the class names. First is dot classic, dot static. Position is static, and then we are giving the border to it. That's it, nothing else. So what is the border? Let me remove this first. All right. So just the very first selector. Dot static is the class selector. Position is static. Then you are going to give the border. Now understand that static positioning is by default for every element. So there won't be any change except that you are creating a border for it. That's it. Now let's go ahead and see. Yeah. So you are just creating a border and they contains images. That's it. No change. Static position default is static. So there is no change. Every element that you see is still in static position. All right. Now let's move on to the next one. So what is the next one we can take after the static? Let's say relative. Now, what is the class we have selected? Dot relative. So dot relative is what here. This is the class that we have selected. Now inside this class selector, what we have made, position is equal to relative. Now we are saying how is this relation? It is left. So always remember, whenever you say left, is the position of the left margin. Okay, the left, right, top, bottom are always margin. Okay, and you can only use these left, bottom, top, right only when you use position. If you don't use position, right, this becomes of no use. It will not understand. So always remember, the left margin, right margin, the property left, right, top, bottom can only be used after the position property. Okay, they are both comes together. You cannot use only left without using position. That doesn't make sense at all right, now understand this. What we are trying to say here is, position is relative, and left margin we are setting it to 90 pixel, which means what happens now, because the balls are arranged like this from the leftmost side. Now from the leftmost side, 90 pixel of margin is given, and then it will start. The balls will start. Now let's see that. Yeah. So now if you see, position is equal to relative, and this position that you are seeing, right, the gap here, this is because of left. You have set a left margin as 90 pixel. Okay, and the entire block has moved. If you see, it has moved here from here to here. Okay, ideally it should have ended here, but this 90 pixel has moved here because of this left 90. I can go ahead and say right 90 as well. That also possible, and it will leave the position right here. Okay, and it will move all the way here inside. Okay, understood, guys? How the relative works?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's go ahead and understand fixed now. So, as the name itself suggests, it is fixed to the viewport size. Now, what is this fixed class? Fixed class is this one, and it contains also three images. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and see what has been defined for fixed. Position is fixed, and bottom is 0, which means here at the bottom it will appear, because it fixed is always in relation to the viewport size. This is entire window, what you are seeing, the display window. Now what it is saying is, at the bottom you are giving 0 margin, and at the right you are giving 0 margin. So it should appear somewhere at this position. Okay, because bottom also 0, right also 0, so which means it should appear somewhere here. Okay, attached to the right and bottom side. And width is given 300 pixel, and border is 3 pixel, which is blue. Let's go ahead and see how that appears. Now this is how it appears. Why? Because, guys, because the from the bottom the margin is 0 pixel, from the right it is 0 pixel, and it is fixed. Even though you scroll it, it is fixed always to the viewport, relative to the viewport. And that is the reason you see this at the bottom and right. I can go ahead and move this from wherever it is. So I can go ahead and say, instead of bottom, I can say top. Then it will go top right here. It will always appear at the top right. Even though you move everything behind, it is fine. But this particular position of this element will always be at the top right, because we have given 0. At the same time, you can go ahead and give 10 pixel. Okay, and here you can go ahead and give 100 pixel, and then because of that position it will again change from this 100 pixel. From there top it is 10 pixel, it will change the position. Okay, that is because of position is equal to fixed. Understood, guys, this one?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now next is absolute. Now absolute is what? Absolute, if you see, we have given this particular class. Now just understand this a little bit. It is slightly different. In order to understand that, you need to be comprehending certain things here. Now absolute is always in relation to the relative, which means there is a division that has been created. This is a parent division. Then this division contains three tags, which are image tags. Inside this tag, there is again another division, which is absolute. And this contains again three images, which means the div contains another div, which means this is the parent div and this is the child div. Now, whenever you use absolute, right, it is always in relation to this parent, which means the relative abs. Now what we are going to see first is understand relative abs, which is for the total. Now let me remove this also to show you. Let's remove sticky and let's remove absolute. Just take relative abs now. There is a class that is defined that is called relative abs, which is a div class. Now, what is that definition? Position is relative. Okay, width is 400 pixel, height is 200 pixel. That is, and there is no left or right that is given. Okay, it is always appearing at the leftmost side attached to the viewport, and position is relative, and nothing else is given. Maybe I can give left is equal to 100 pixel. Okay, let's say left is 100 pixel. Position is relative, left is equal to 100 pixel, width has been set, height has been set, and border has been set. Now let's go ahead and see the output first. Now, because of this left is equal to 100%, you are seeing this gap here. Okay, now everything is falling within this. Okay, now what is going on inside here? The width is set to 400 pixel and height is set to what? Height is set to 200 pixel. Okay, and then everything is falling inside it. Now this has been created. Then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add a absolute. So absolute is what it is doing. Absolute is position absolute from bottom 0, from right 0. So width is 200, height is 100. So within the bottom and height, okay, now if you see this particular thing, from bottom it is 0, from right it is 0. So that is the reason it is appearing at this corner. And then what it is saying, it is saying that background color is set to light blue. That is the reason you are seeing this light blue color. And then what else is, the width is 200 pixel, which is from here to here the width is 200, and this height is set to 100 pixel. Okay, 100 pixel. So the absolute is always in relationship to this relative window, within that, within its parent. This is a parent and this is a child, and the parent will define, will have an influence on this absolute property. Okay, understood this one?
Yes, sir.
Any questions, guys? Anything that you're doubting here? Anything you want to know?
No, sir.
Okay. And then finally, we have something called as sticky. Sticky is that property or the position where you have the position defined how it need to be, and it will stay there for even if you scroll the website. So it is related to scrolling of the website. Scrolling is this moving up and down. This is scrolling of the website. So now what it is saying, sticky position is sticky from top 0 pixel. So it will appear at the top, and padding is given 5 pixel. So there is a gap between there, which has given a padding of 5 pixel. Background color is light blue and border is 2 pixel. Let's go ahead and see for this particular last the section, which is class sticky, which contains 9 images. Okay, let's go ahead and see. So now these are the 9 images that we have. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, Now because we have given this as a sticky, what will happen when we scroll? It will stay there. Okay, it will stay there even after we are going down, it will stay there. All right, if you go, the moment it reaches the scroll top edge, it will stay there, it won't go. Okay, that is because of the sticky property. So now because how is the sticky defined? Sticky defined is because of this. From top I have given 0 pixel. If I have given 100 pixel, then it will stop right at 100 pixel. This is the gap of 100 pixel. All right, now it will stop until that image comes. The moment that image comes, it will scroll down. This is the nature of the position is equal to sticky. Understood? Understood this one, guys? So now we have seen about the position, right? And now let's talk about Z index. Now again, one another important concept here. Z index always appears in relation to how the multiple elements positioned. Okay, so you can only use Z index when there is a position property being used. Okay, you cannot use Z index without position property. Always remember that. In the same way, left, right, top, bottom can only be used in relation to the position. At the same time, the Z index property can only be used in relation to the position. So now, what is the Z index stands for? Specifies the stack order of an element. So stack order is like if there are multiple elements that overlap each other. Okay. Now you need to understand what should appear at the top and what should appear behind that and then behind that. Okay. That is what the order, stack order of the element is. Now let's consider this as an example. Let's go ahead and take this example. And what I'm going to do is just remove this. Just see how the structure of the web page will look like. So what it contains, a h1 tag with 3 images basically. There are 3 images. One is a Skillsam logo, another is a dog, and then there is a football image. 3 images are there. That is what you can see. There is a Skillsam image, and then there is a doggy, and then there is a football. So 3 images are currently there. Now let's take this an example. So football, and then there is a doggy, and then there is a Skillsam. Now let's remove the Z index property just to show you. Okay, what have been done? There are 3 classes created: Skillsam, doggy, and football, and we have taken those 3 class selectors. Dot football position is absolute, dot doggy position is absolute, dot Skillsam position is absolute. That is what is being set now. Just we have set the position. Now just observe, with this what happens? Only football appears. What about the other 3 images? Other 2 images, that is a image of a Skillsam logo and a doggy. They are behind it ideally. Okay, they are behind it, and that is the reason they are not visible to the eye now. So now what happens then? Ideally what is happening here? The stacking of the elements is happening, which means the stacking of 3 images, one below the other. Now this Z index property will provide the order of the stack order of an element, which means which should appear at the top. Now suppose if you see this, whenever you say a stack index of -1. Okay, now what will happen? And this is a stack index of 0, and there is a a Z index of 1. Now if you observe, you have got a Skillsam image, then there is a doggy image, and at the back there is a football image. Okay, so if you observe it clearly, Football is appearing at the very back, and then there is a doggy image, and then there is a skillsam image. That is because the moment you give z index as -1, it is at the very behind, okay, at the very last. Whenever you give stack index as -1, which means it is at the very last, and greater the number, then more it will appear at the front. So -1, that is the reason you can see football is appearing at the last, and then there is z index of 0, which is for doggy, hence it is appearing on top of that. And then there is a skillsam which is given z index of 1, it will appear on top of the dog. Okay, so and then you can go ahead and give the any number, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all that can be added if there are multiple elements being used. Okay, always remember that -1 is at the last, at the behind, at the very back of the stack. Understood, guys? All right. Then there is something called as overflow. As the name itself suggests, there is some container, there is some element, and something is getting overflown. Or just take an analogy, a bucket which is filled with water, excess water will again overflow out of the bucket. That is how you want to imagine this to be. Now, let's take this example. Now, there is a certain text here. Okay, now there is a lot of text, but I need to put that text within this specified boundaries, and then there is a scroll appears. If this was not given, then things would have been slightly different. Again, there is this property as well, overflow wrap, and then overflow. Let's take this as an example and see what will happen. And now let me remove this over styling. Just understand, there is a h1 tag, there is a paragraph tag which has given a class as demo overflow, and then there is another paragraph which also has the same class demo overflow. Then there is a h2 tag which contains a div tag. Again, a div tag will contain a demo wrap. Okay, now for the time being, let's understand only this part, which is overflow. H1, two paragraphs, that's it. So how the output is going to look like is simple. This is a demo, and this is one paragraph, and then bottom there is one line which is again another paragraph. Okay, there are two paragraphs basically. Now this paragraph, if you contain, there's a lot of text available. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's say there is a background that has been set. Okay, and then there is a padding which is of 10 pixel. There is a width which has been set to 75% of the viewport, and height has been set to 200 pixel, and border is 2 pixel, solid indigo. Text alignment is justified. Now just I'll remove this overflow. Okay, I mean, without the overflow property, how is this going to look? Just observe this. Okay, now what is that you are observing? I'll remove this as well. Okay, what is that you are observing? This paragraph, a single paragraph. Okay, and then there is another paragraph. You see a lot of chaos is happening because these two paragraphs are there, this paragraph and this paragraph. Now both the paragraphs have the same class, right? So what we have taken, the same class, and the same class has got a height of 200 pixel, which is this, and then the width of 75% of the viewport, which is up from left to right, this one, and this is 25%. Okay, so 75% of the viewport is taken, and there is a border and text alignment, all that is looks fine. But what is happening is the very first paragraph, because it has got a lot of content, and that content has moved all the way till here, and what you see, observe the very single line that is you can see here is the line that is from the actual second paragraph. This is actually the second paragraph, it is overflowing. All right, now in order to restrict this overflow, what we need to do, we need to use what is known as the property called overflow. Overflow is equal to auto. So when you say overflow is equal to auto, what will happen? It will automatically create a scroll. Everything will reside inside this space itself. So the overflow can be handled using a scroll button. Okay, understood this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is how you can control the overflow by using overflow property. And next what I want to show you is there is another property called as overflow wrap. So what, again, you can have a overflow property, auto, scroll, hidden, or visible. All the three, all four can be done. And there is overflow X, which means only the left to right, okay, left to right edges of the content. And if you want to control overflow on the vertical, that is overflow Y you can use. And then there is another property called overflow wrap, which specifies whether or not the browser can break lines. Like for example, what will happen is if there is a very long word, okay, now let me remove this, or let's say let me remove this. If there is a very long word like this, what it contains: a b c d up to z underscore, and then there is 1 2 3, and the restriction about it is only within this border it should reside. What is the border that has given? Width is 200 pixel and height is 150 pixel, and the border is 2 pixel. So 200 and 150, within this space this word has to reside, but the word itself is too long in order to accommodate within this, hence it is coming out of that area. So in order to control that, what we have is overflow wrap. Overflow wrap is equal to visible. When you set this, then what will happen is it will automatically set this horizontal and the vertical scroll bars. This is because of this. If you just remove this, just set overflow auto, what will happen? It will set this overflow is equal to auto. And then if you set overflow visible, then you can able to check that till the end. Okay, so this is how when you can go ahead and control your overflow wrapping of the text. Make sense, guys?
Yes, sir.
Now let's go ahead and try to understand float and clear. Again, there are ways to it to understand how we can go ahead and see what is float and what is clear. So in order to clear the floats, we use clear. But now first understand what is this float. Okay. Now float is what? It specifies how an element should float, which is that is basically positioning and formatting of the web content. And float property can be a left, a right, none, or inherent. Now, if you have used position, you can go ahead and use left, right, top, bottom. Okay, that is there. But when you use a float, then you are trying to specify how the float should occur. Float is, it is basically what? It is also related to the positioning. So the position property is also about positioning, but only that has got certain values, that is static, or it can be relative, it can be sticky, it can be absolute. Those are the values that can define the position property. Whereas float is also defines how an element should float, that is positioning and formatting web content. Now what is the float? Float can have properties. Float is a property which can have values like left, right, none, or inherent. Now when you say left, which means element floats to the left of its container. Okay, now when it says right, the element floats to the right of its container. And then none, element does not float, this is the default. By default, float is none. And inherent, it will always inherent its parent. Like if there is a div containing a div, if you say float is inherent, then the child div will inherit from the parent, whatever is defined for the parent. Now let's take this an example. This will be a good interesting. So this can be used for your headers, guys. Very common use case for this is when you are creating a menu, right? That is the right place we can go ahead and use these floats. And very often we are going to use that when you are creating a header. Now just the HTML structure would look something like this. If you see, there is a heading 1, then heading 2. What is this? Heading 2 or heading 3? Heading 2. And then it contains an image and a paragraph. This image and a paragraph. Okay, the paragraph is huge. And then float next to each other. We are going to see this as well. This is again another thing. And then we are going to say clear float. That is one demonstration. So for now, just understand this particular thing. Now, the very first thing we are going to use is outer float. What we have done for this, padding is 10, the border has been set. Okay, so we are setting the border and the padding for the very first section. And then inside that, there is a float image. And for float image, what is being done? Float image, float is equal to right has been set. Now, let's consider only these two. And rest all, let's remove it. What is this? First is float image and outer float, outer set, which is only related to these. Let's go ahead and see the output. So what it contains, the float has been float outer, which is this selection, has got a padding of 10 pixel. And that is the reason you are seeing this gap here. This is because of that 10 pixel and at the bottom. Okay. And then what is there? There is a border 3 pixel dashed, which is this one, what you are seeing. Okay. 3 pixel dashed. Now, float image is right. So, had I not given this particular property, what would have happened? It would have appeared here and then below, because the first one is a heading, that is a display is equal to block, and then there is an image, display is equal to inline. The moment again there is a section will also be a block element. So all will appear in 3 separate lines. Now what I wanted, for the image itself, it should appear at the right side. So what I'm going to give, float is equal to right for the image. That is the reason it is appearing at this position inside the, where is this float image appearing? It is appearing inside the section. Okay, so this entire section. Now what we are saying, the float is equal to right. So it will appear, this is one paragraph, it will appear on the right side. If I give it left, then it will appear on the left side of the paragraph. Okay, at the start here itself. Okay, that is the usage of float. How you are floating the different elements, which is basically defining the position and formatting of the element using float is equal to left, right, none, or inherit. Now, if I say float is equal to none, then that is the default value that you saw, that they'll appear one below the other. All right. And next is what we have taken the another example. Let's say this example. What is this? Contains a demo and 3 divs, and each div will contain orange, white, green. And there are 3 classes that have been created. So what are these 3 classes? So just setting the background color. 3 background colors we have set it, and then there is a div which says float is equal to left. That is important here. So what is this div? This div is nothing but these 3. Okay, there is no other div in this example. Only these three are there: orange, red, and green. Now, if this particular styling is not given, then what will happen? Just observe that if this is not given, they are appearing how? Float next to each other. Then there is a orange, there is a white, and there is a green. Nothing. Just they are following this structure of orange, white, and green. Now, let me give the coloring to it. Other than this, let me remove this. Just give this dot orange, set the background color, dot green, white, and then green. So how it will appear? This is how it will appear: orange, white, and green. But now what I want is they should appear next to each other. How can I put this next to each other? That I can do using float. And that float is equal to left. So what will happen? Float is equal to left. Then they will appear next to each other. Here there is a orange, then there is white, then there is green. And if I say float is equal to right, then the opposite will happen. They'll float orange, white, and then green. Okay. So understand this. Because of this, float is equal to left. They, instead of one below the other, they are appearing next to each other. These three blocks. Make sense, guys?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Good. And the very last one is float is equal to clear. So there is another section that is created. We have given two class names: outer sec and clear float. Outer sec is there basically a formatting, right, that we have given padding and border. That is what is done. And there is another class called clear float. This is what the class is important to us. What is this clear float does? Clear float is having a property called clear both. Okay, so what it means, both float is equal to right and float is equal to left. Now what is happening here? We have already set a float is equal to right, float is equal to left, and if we don't clear the float right, whatever is happening will continue. Let me show that. If I don't give this, let's say, and I'll show the output. See, now what is happening? Because this particular element, orange, white, red, we have given float is equal to left, because this is the div that we have already given. So every element will start following whatever the element is there after this div. So after this div, then section comes. Then section will be like left. It will be arranged to the left. So in order to cut this continuity of the float is equal to left, we need to clear the float after this. Okay, so always remember, whenever you use float, make sure that you clear the float when it is not needed. If it is not cleared right, then it will continue to the next element. So that is the reason you need to explicitly go ahead and clear the float. Whether it is left, the float is equal to left or right, you can say float is equal to left. Only the left will be cleared. And if the right appear, if it exists, then it will still continue. So always it is good practice to say float, you clear both, which means left and right floated elements all will be cleared. Okay. Now, in that case, what will happen? They will appear in the next line rather than appearing next over here. All right, makes sense? Now, the next what we can do is float images next to each other. Yeah, this is one important activity. I think you can go ahead and do that. I'll just show the output to you. And without seeing this, okay, what I want you to do is go ahead and put these images next to each other. There are three images. Take any image randomly and make sure they appear next to each other. Okay, like this. How you see here, there is a Messi image, Ronaldo image, and Neymar's image. They are appearing next to each other instead of one below the other. And this is a takeaway for you guys. And make sure you complete this assignment. I mean, don't see this directly here. and I want you to go ahead and try this first. Float images next to each other. Okay, so what I need is three images. Okay, they need to appear next to each other like the way what you see it here, and use the float property. Okay, make sense? And next is display inline block. Yeah, now again, there is some conceptual things that we need to understand here. What is this display inline block? All right, now so far you have seen multiple things, right? Display property, you have seen it. Display is equal to what are the different values that display property can have, guys? Can anyone tell me?
None visibility.
Okay, what is that? Yeah, none.
Visibility, sir.
Okay, can anyone again try this? Hey, you are right in one part is not right.
Display inline display block.
Yeah, display inline, display block, you're right.
None.
Okay, good.
Inline block
Yeah,
and
because
block.
yeah, very good, very good. So yeah, I mean that's right. I mean, display can have four values. One is display can be inline, display can be block, display can be none. Okay, that is the default value that display can have. And also now what we are going to talk about is display is inline block. Okay, there is also another value that it can go is inline block. What it does, allows to set the width and height of the element, that is top, right, bottom, margin and padding, as respected to compared to the inline. Okay, and a display inline block does not add a line break. So now what will happen is, whenever you say a display is block, then it will create an element in a new line. Okay, that is one thing. When you say display is equal to inline, which means it will appear in the same line. But when you say display as inline block, what it will happen, it will set the width and height of the element, and top, bottom, right, margin, padding are respected compared to the inline, which will not happen in inline. Inline it will be gone. Whereas in display is equal to block, when we say it does not, inline block, it does not add a new line break after the element. So the element can still appear in the same line compared to the block. So there are two things here. Now for that to understand, right, let's go ahead and take this example, what I meant by. Now let's say we'll remove this. Just check the output of this skeleton, what it contains. There is a heading and there is a subheading and paragraph, then there is a horizontal rule, again subheading, paragraph, horizontal rule, subheading, paragraph. Okay, this is what the structure is defined here. Heading 1, then there is a heading 2, there is a div contains a span. Contains the entire text. Inside that there is a span element, which is for skillsam learning, where you see in this is a span. Okay, this is a span. Again, this is a span. Skillsam learning, this is a span. And the same thing is there for all the three. Now let's understand, there is no difference, guys. All three blocks, right, what you are seeing are the same content. Just by changing the property, how we are going to change the difference, just observe that. Okay, now span inline, what is this? For the very first block I have taken, span inline is the class that has been given for the span. Inside that we have a content called skillsam learning. So for inline, what will happen, let's see that. So I have set the display is equal to inline, which is obviously the default for span. Span is an inline element, right? And what we are doing, we are setting the width as 200 pixel and height as 200 pixel. Padding is set to 5 pixel, and then there is a border that we have created for that span, which will be 1 pixel solid black, and then there is a background of corn flower blue. Now just consider this styling and let's see the output. So this is how it looks. What it says, inline is fine. The color is there. The border of 1 pixel is there. Black, it is appearing. These two are taken care. This is taken care. And what about these width and height? The width is set to 200 pixel and height is set to 200 pixel. That doesn't have any effect on it, which means the width and height property are not respected in inline element. Okay, when you set the block as inline, when you set the block as when you set the display as inline, the height and width are not respected, which means they are not, they become irrelevant whether they exist or not. Even though if they don't exist also, it will be same. Okay, they are not, they doesn't care at all whenever you say display is equal to inline. Now let's take the next one. Next next block, let's say, which is this one. Here also we have taken the span, and the same skills I'm learning is taken here. We have put a span block as a class name, and this class selector has got block. Okay, display is equal to block. There is a width here, height here, padding, same thing whatever is given here. Okay, same what you have given to inline is thing. Other properties also they match, except that block is equal to display is equal to block here. And let's see how it looks. So width and height is respected. Okay, but what happens is when you say display is equal to block, they appear in a new line. Display is equal to inline, they appear in the same line, whereas display is equal to block will be, you see, after this line it is appearing in the same line, but after this it has taken a new line altogether. It appears in a new line and then the rest of the text follows. This is because you are making the display is equal to block. Now combine these two problems here. What are the problems? The width and height should be respected like in like the way it is done in block. It is respected, which is they appear, whereas it should appear in line like the way it will appear in the display is equal to inline. Like the way it appears here, it should appear here. So if you want to combine these two and create what is now called as inline block, if you see, both will be addressed. What are those both the problems? First is the width and height should be set. Okay, and the second is the element span should appear in the same line. All right, it should not appear in the new line like the way it happens in the block. So now rest all properties remain same like the way for these two. This also remains same. Only thing is we have changed inline block. Now if you observe what is happening here, the entire text is there intact. The element appears in line, the span is appearing in line, the height and width is also there, and the next element content is again followed. So if you observe this, the combination of these two will be inline block. Are you able to understand this, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So now that is about inline block. Now, opacity and transparency, as the name itself suggests, how opaque or transparent the elements are. Opacity is like completely opaque, like you have rock, or for that matter, wood. All these are opaque object. Transparent is like a glass. Okay. Now let's see that. Now, if you observe here, this is the image. If I hover over it, it changes. When I move it, it becomes blur. Okay, and then it is clear. Now these can happen by using opacity and transparency. These are the properties. Opacity specifies the opacity or transparency of the element. Basically, the value is 0.1 to 1.0. Okay. So the lower the opacity value, the more transparent it is. Okay. If it is 0, then it is more transparent. If it is 1, it is more opaque. Okay. That is what it means. Now let's consider this example. Now, what it contains is a simple thing. Demo 1, which is a heading, and div contains a image. Okay. Simple thing. This is what it contains, a image and the a heading. Simple. And now let's go ahead and check this particular styling. There are certain classes, that is image container. Now, what is this image container? A background color is cornflower blue. Width is set to 40% of the viewport. Padding is 10. And this one. Now, let's remove this. Just the styling. If you see, width is 40% of the viewport is taken. There is a border being set, and the background color is corn blue. Because of this, it is appearing this particular border. And here you have the padding set 10 pixel. So that is the reason you are going to see this 10 pixel, 10 pixel, 10, 10 all the way here. All right, that is padding. Now this is what the image will look now. Now let's add opacity and transparency. Now let's say the very first, just don't consider the hover text. Opacity is equal to 0.5, which means lower the value, more opacity. Higher the value, more transparency, right? That is what we saw. Lower the opacity value, more transparent it is. So now if you see, it is 0.5. If I give it to 0.1, it is again more transparency. Lower the opacity, more transparency. Okay. And then if I increase the value to 8, it will be increase the opacity, lower the transparency. Okay. So now let's consider we have given it to opacity is equal to 0.5. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to add over. Okay, this is what, guys? Colon hover. What sort of selector is this? Can anyone tell this? What kind of selector is this? Now can anyone tell what are the different kinds of selectors in CSS?
Simple selectors, combinational selectors, pseudo selectors.
Good. What else? Pseudo
Pseudo element selectors.
good. Pseudo element selector, that's right. And attribute selector, correct? So there are 5 selectors that we have seen. One is simple selector, one is combinator selector, third is pseudo state selector, then pseudo element selector, and then there is a attribute selector. Okay. Now these are the state. Okay. Now what is that? Hover is a state, visited is a state, and then there is a link is a state. So there are different states that the link can have. Now in this case, what are we trying to do here? Whenever we hover the text over it, then it is going to change the opacity. Okay, only that thing we are going to change from image opacity 0.5 to opacity 1.0. So understood, guys? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. I think that's good for today. I think the next session will be the last for CSS. And tomorrow we are going to wrap it up for tomorrow. And then we'll enter the JavaScript. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.